Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take calm as your reality is adjusted.
Hello, my fragments. Yes, hello and welcome. Hopefully you got this far. You'll have to bear with me if I giggle a little bit. Maybe my tweaking was too subtle on that. I don't think so. It's about as subtle as a house brick, but yes, anyway, hello and welcome. This is Virtual Shamanizing with me, the Hairy Cookie Monster. Yes, I am the Hairy Cookie Monster this week. Last week I was the hairy goat-legged monster, and prior to that I was impersonated by the flying spaghetti monster, but there you go. Yes. A bit of silliness. I messed about with that classic track, yes, very deliberately. Again, maybe stating the obvious, but I think it will become apparent as we go along. Hello to those of you in the chat room, if you can hear me. Nobody seems to be saying much at the moment. Maybe they're in too much shock at the confusion of that track. Yes, anyway, that was Brave New World by Jeff Wayne, obviously with some loving tweaking done by me just to add some emphasis here and there, for reasons that should hopefully become apparent, other than of course just the sheer concept of those three things being intrinsic to our society. Yes, banks, prisons and schools. Yeah, we'll get to that as we go along. Anyway, yes, hello my fragments. Just in case you don't get it, I'm just sort of making a sort of, what could you call it? Almost satirical, ironic, satirical, I don't know, nod towards the general chatter that's been going on in the more esoteric side of the conversations of all this various stuff that's going on at the moment that I try to be involved in one way or another, whether that's just observing it or getting involved in the conversation with people, etc, etc. Yeah, the bit more sort of what would be typically described as the crazy hippie type stuff. For most of you out there, yes, use that derogatory box and label, but I hope that you can see past all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's still the ongoing chatter relating from, I mentioned it I think last week or the week before, about the 4 consecutive X-class flares from the sun, and how there seemed to have been an energy change, or almost like a drawing back of the tide. That's a bit like how it felt for me anyway. It was like the energy was being drawn back, ready for that sudden rush back in again. Yes. But yeah, just sort of nod to that general conversation that's still been ongoing. I've got to get straight into this subject because it will lead me on as we go. It was quite convenient. I was thinking about using that particular track, The Brave New World, anyway, and for like the reasons I tweaked around with it and mashed it up a bit is similar to what this became in the end anyway. This story just seemed to fall in my lap, as they say, as I was scanning the news this afternoon and looking at the various stories of what's going on and whatever, and lo and behold, it rears its ugly head like the snake in the grass. Yes, I'm referring to the Charlie Veitch affair. I had to struggle then to make sure I actually said the name, because normally you see it normally comes out as Charlie Biatch. So I have to consciously think about forming the word so that I don't say biatch. Yeah, here's a link. I'm guessing the usual suspects in the chat room have probably already seen all this anyway. This was the story as relayed on the actual David Icke website, because Charlie is claiming to be good mates with David Icke, and he's basically trying to persuade him to give him some free positive PR. Yes, it's all just exceedingly sad. And yes, I will freely admit, if you look back in my online history, as it were, my online footprint, I did give quite a lot of support and backing and appreciation towards Charlie Veitch, originally with the Love Police, and when he was involved with Spiritual Entertainer as well, and they're doing loads of good stuff, getting out there, megaphoning and all that lot. And yes, I was very appreciative of it back then. But as time wore on and more people were pointing out and discovering the duplicitous nature of the biatch, the egomaniac drive, let's put it that way. And then we had the I think what would have been the absolute death knell for whom the bell tolls, when he did his U-turn on the whole 9/11 truth movement, etc., etc. Yes. And now, all of a sudden, conveniently, he comes crawling back up out of the internet gutters to do an interview for the Telegraph. I'll read out the rough addresses for people who are just listening. Find the particular tab. I've got so many tabs open. Find it on davidicke.com. Just search his headlines for the name Charlie Veitch. Yeah, you'll find the story. It was put up today. And the one on the Telegraph, where is it? There it is. Yeah, on the telegraph.co.uk, the 9/11 conspiracy theorist who changed his mind. Yeah, I think just the title alone gives you the general sort of lay of the land, the cut of the jib of this particular attack piece, propaganda piece, mimetic seeding. So convenient timing. Yes, we'll get further into that as we go. Just some comments about this article. As I've seen other people as well comment online. As watching Kev on his channel, TruthTube 451, isn't it? Yeah, TruthTube 451. Yes, just some of the comments in this that have been carefully crafted so that not only are you now automatically a terrorist if you're looking at any of this kind of information to do with conspiracies or government cover-ups or false flags, or even some of the more esoteric stuff, the Illuminati and all that. All these phrases, all these keyword mimetic phrases have been seeded within this article, and it leads you to the classic straw man of being an anti-Semite, being a neo-Nazi, a fascist, far right wing, blah 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 blah. It's such a highly convenient timing for him to raise his head and get a mainstream media article interview done on him where it actually says all this kind of stuff. Let's have a big terrorist event. Let's whip the public up to an absolute frenzy of terror, and all these people that look at conspiracy theories, they're all part of the terror network, terror. Look, even this guy who used to be a conspiracy theorist has said they're all anti-Semites and they're all planning to do nasty stuff. Whoa, terror. Highly convenient timing, isn't it? Especially when you then just progress a little bit into time, into the future, and we look at what's upcoming very, very soon. Next week, in fact, I believe, the Builder Buggerer convention, and this just dropping in the chat box, trying to multitask, honest. This is an article on Infowars.com. Police wary of provocateurs at Bilderberg 2013. Yes, well, again, check the article out for yourself. It basically just says what it, does what it says on the tin. From what I've read, because I haven't actually seen it or listened to it. I don't very often listen to Alex Jones or Infowars much anymore. I do when I see information that interests me. That's always been my argument: follow the information, don't get obsessed with the red-faced wobbly-head person who's standing in front of the tent. Yes, they had an interview, I think it was a phone interview, with the police chief, was it? Or, well, I can't remember now, it wasn't a chief, somebody in the police department anyway, who was explaining what the security setup would involve, etc., etc., and the fact that the police were endeavouring to enable legal protest. Yes, we could possibly get into a discussion about terminology used and legalese, etc., etc. But I think Admiral Akbar said it best when he said, "It's the trap!" Yes, definitely. If you don't get the association there, that's a classic scene from Star Wars with the fish-faced commander of the fleet when they realise they've been tricked by the Empire and they've been drawn into a trap. And he said, "Yes, it's a trap." I might have, I think, spoken about this before. If you haven't seen it recently as well, the UK column has been doing a fair bit of coverage of all the various goings on around Bilderberg and the Bilderberg Fringe Festival and the upcoming gathering of various protesters and activists and alternative news, independent media, as well as mainstream media, etc., and the police action that's required to go along with that. Yes, lots of people talking about it at the moment, and lots of information out there for you to go and look at if you want to. But I think I've mentioned before the somewhat suspicious aroma that seems to be building around this event. Bilderberg, for many number of years, has done its best to keep itself secret, to stay out of the public eye. It took one journalist, I'm not suggesting he was the only person, but he was one of the main ones, I'm referring to Jim Tucker. It took one journalist, i.e. Jim Tucker, the majority of his life of pursuing these people and exposing them to actually bring it to what you could argue is the mainstream attention. They have quite happily been having these meetings for decade after decade in private, in secret or semi-secret to a large degree, because the public's attention is kept away from it. Mainstream media refuse to even acknowledge it, etc., etc. That now has changed. They are no longer trying to hide themselves. They are openly having a press area for the mainstream press. They want the media to be there now. Having that happen means guaranteed they are changing their gameplay. They know they can no longer stay in secret. If anything, it probably adds more weight to certain psychological agendas that are going on, that they do come more out of the shadows. It all adds into the big corporatocracy takeover for enabling that utilitarian mindset of, well, corporations are good at making profit, therefore corporations must know how to run the world. Yeah, needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Doesn't matter if some people die over there, as long as we have cheap products to give to the other people over here. So it could very well be that it now suits their particular direction that they do come out into the open. If they are doing this, there are also rumours that the event at the Grove will possibly be a distraction completely. It will be a fake, a hoax. You know, they might even use crisis actors, although nobody's contacted me yet to hire Crisis Cat. Never mind Cat, maybe you might have a chance in another event. But yes, there are rumours that this could just be a distraction. And Area 51, if you will, I like to use Area 51 as an exemplar for this kind of thing, because if you really believe that the base at Groom Lake in Area 51 is the place where they do all their super top secret stuff, then you're really being naive. That's the one they let you know about, and they keep it sort of semi-secret, and they play a little charade game with the people who go and visit and try to investigate it, to keep the public's attention focused on it and not on the true places where it does all its dirty little testing and experiments. And the same is true for here in the UK. There's various sites like that, such as Porton Down, etc. So yes, builder buggerers are accepting the media attention. If they are accepting the media attention, as I say, it follows with some of their psychological agendas. That means they are most definitely, in my opinion, from how I perceive the evidence, they will attempt to manipulate that event. They will attempt to manipulate the media, the press that revolves around that event. If they cannot shift it to give themselves a good press, to put themselves in a good light for the public in some way, then they will set it up such that they will make the opposition look ridiculous in one way or another, or enable them basically to divert attention back onto the people with the placards and the banners and the megaphones and the cameras, etc., etc. And this is not even going as far as the doom porn style potentialities of something quite serious could happen here that they could then utilise as an excuse. Add that in. As I say, this story fell into my lap most perfectly to suit the current news and situation and flow of events. Old Biatch coming out and giving the interview as he has done, including, as I say, all those little keywords. And when you add into the rest of general news events here in the UK, it all paints a very, very unpleasant, shitty picture. If it smells like a turd and it looks like a turd, it's probably a turd. Now, that aside, and all things considered from that, I'm not in any way trying to suggest to people that they do not go. If you can and you want to go, then go for it, definitely. If we have more and more people turning up there, even more it will help unravel any potential confidence trick that they might be attempting to put in front of the public audience. Think about it. If they're expecting 1,000 people to turn up and 100,000 people turn up, they're going to have a real difficulty explaining to the public who is this Bilderberg group and why have 100,000 people just turned up. Let alone the sheer logistics of trying to control and corral 100,000 people. Yeah, maybe I'm being optimistic and hopeful in an airy-fairy fashion about, being an activist and a protester, etc. Oh, come on everyone, let's all get into this way. And that as well was part and parcel of why I chose that particular intro track and changed it slightly the way I did. But yes, I'll come back to that. I'm going to play you another couple of tunes now. The first one I chose after seeing that particular news story in the Telegraph. Well, news story, it's an attack, it's a propaganda attack piece. There's no news in that. yes, but I just thought this track definitely. They're going to give you a couple of tracks that are, sort of reggae, but you'll get the point when you listen to them. And I will be back in about 9 minutes. And welcome back. Yes, welcome back to Virtual Shamanizing with me, Harry Cookermonster. Yeah, listening to those tunes, I couldn't help but spark up like while I was listening to them. Normally I'd wait until they're finished, but no, definitely. Skin Dread, State of Emergency, and from the Easy Star All Star album, Citizen Cop doing Radio Dread tune, Karma Police. I picked them two partly for the lyrics, but also as I felt a good example of what is a positive, creative outcome of multiculturalism. Yeah, a lot of conversation at the moment is the good old racialist based. Racialist, is that even a word? It is now. Is multiculturalism any good? All that usual kind of argument. And both of those tunes for me, they don't take away from they don't erase the original. They're not trying to get rid of the original in some kind of cultural Marxist relative way. No, they are creating something new from different cultural groups and mixing it together to come out with something new and original. And to me, they're both brilliant examples of how multiculturalism has given us new creative things and new ways to express ourselves, express our emotions, express our thoughts, etc., etc. All the good reasons for art in and of itself. Yes, anyway, before I ramble off into ranting about art. Yeah, watch the latest Artist Taxi Driver. He put up a couple of good uploads today. One about the food banks. Suxcox News was about the food banks, and he was interviewing somebody. The number 8 interview, Mo. Oh, I've forgotten his name now. I know it was Mo something. Yeah, go and check his channel. I've been that distracted looking at loads of other stuff since watching that this afternoon. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name already. Answar, was it? Yes, anyway, carry on, keep rambling, you old fool. Let's mention a little bit about other news, but we'll come back to the main thread, as I normally do, but I can't, I feel that I can't. Not that I can't, I just feel that I shouldn't not mention the current situation as it's ongoing in the Middle East, primarily Syria. Supposedly has now taken arrival of some of these missiles that Russia was sending to them. ISIS-Rael is yapping away as it usually does, but louder and more aggressively than usual. Arguably, yes, I should really say that. Could the situation escalate rapidly? Yes, it could. So, yeah, that's day by day as it's ongoing, but not to ignore that situation because it could become exceedingly serious. Yes, and not to get dragged into the doom porn of it, but other news as well, which partly adds into some of the main thread I was going to talk about. Do copy and paste, multitask-rama into the chat room. This was a story that was on RT. I think a few others have carried it as well, but yeah, find it on rt.com. Friend of Boston bombing suspect unarmed when killed by FBI. Right, the ongoing situation with the investigation into the Boston bombing event, the marathon bombing, and the Chechen brothers and their friends and links, etc., etc. This guy was being interviewed. You may have heard this story a few days ago. He was being interviewed by the FBI. Actually, I think I might have mentioned it last week, didn't I? Yes, in passing, because it came out about the same time as the two FBI agents falling out of a helicopter. And originally this guy who was being interviewed and then was shot dead by the FBI agents that were interviewing him, supposedly because he pulled a knife and attacked them. And now the official sources are saying, because it does say that where is it? Civil rights activists. No, it was law enforcement officials. According to law enforcement officials, so supposedly this is coming from official sources, that no, actually the guy was unarmed at the time of his death. So yes, that situation is definitely still ongoing, and the potential of it being a MyHop or LIHOP seems to be growing by the day. The paper trail of the attempted cover-up storyline seems to be unravelling rapidly. Yes, agents falling out of helicopters. And next link, which is another associated one. This one is on Press TV. I'll find my tab for it. Yes, presstv.ir. FBI used Photoshop in Boston bombings evidence. Investigative journalist. This is Press TV reporting on an investigative journalist. It's not actually written by the guy in question. It's more they are relaying his findings, who has been analysing and studying some of the photographs, the official photographs that were released of the younger brother Jokar as he was supposedly running away from the scene of the crime, and analysing the background detail to try and figure out whether there had been some Photoshop style chicanery going on with these officially sanctioned photographs. I do believe these are stills that are taken out of phone camera video. I can remember watching the actual footage. Obviously it was a while ago, but yes, it's another highly interesting article. I'm not sure I definitely agree with his findings. I think a lot of it could be down to digital camera pixelation, especially the fact that it was a camera phone video originally. There can be a lot of things that happen in between the real world and the digital file that is recorded to whatever the holding device is in the particular camera or phone or whatever, whether it's an SD card or a mini hard drive or whatever. The digital lens itself is not in any way as reliable as a true physical glass lens shutter setup, an old SLR style camera setup. There can be digital interference for various reasons, and then of course you have to allow for all the different little bits of software that are within the gadget itself, such as little software algorithms to balance white noise, balance background light, focus on people's faces, facial recognition apps, all this kind of stuff can be affecting the digital information before it's even recorded into the device. So it can cause, as I say, digital noise can appear in the picture before it's even recorded. And then of course you've got all the potentialities of it actually being messed with afterwards, and in that respect you need the original files so that those files can be examined, forensically examined, in the sense of they will dig into the code that represents that digital file, and there will be little trace bits in that code that will for those people that know what to look for, they'll give little indications of the fact that this file has been edited or messed with, i.e. it's been altered in Photoshop, for example. Whenever you alter a file with a piece of software, it leaves trace fingerprints of itself, most often deliberately. It'll include digital timestamps and a digital code to represent what the program was and what version of the program it was, etc, etc, etc. So if they had the original digital files and they could forensically examine them in that way, we'd have a more definite evidence of these pictures being altered. But yes, so from that sort of other similar associated news, it leads me into going back to talking about the main stuff I was talking about. Yes, which does all link into the event in Woolwich, I feel. The Bilderberg meeting coming up. All these news stories coming out at the moment, the biatch angle, let's call it that, the biatch angle, and all the various circle of freaks that is going on around the whole Woolwich event. I use that phrase carefully. I use it in the sense of the traditional circus freak show, which would attract all the rubberneckers, the people who want to gawk and point and vulture at people that are, for whatever reason, different to them, who may experience or express their reality differently to them. And adding to that the problem of, when dealing with what is for us second-hand information, the majority of the time we are relying on information that is passed through the mainstream media filter to us. Yes, it's true, a lot more information comes through more directly now in the modern social media age of citizen reporting, etc. But most of the time we're reliant on trying to sift through the information that is allowed out to us in one way or another from whichever particular agency or media outlet or NGO or whatever else. So we end up with this big circus going round and round and round of people arguing backs and forwards about what version they choose to believe in. Is there no blood? Is there blood? Did they really run him down? Did the car not even scratch the lamppost or signpost? Did they cut his head off, but did he still have his hood pulled up? Or all these kind of questions. And the knee-jerk emotive reaction, as I was trying to express and transmute in last week's show, that initial outpouring of anger and revulsion and hatred gets people polarised and gets them turning up for protest marches in various cities across the UK. There has been, and still ongoing, there's still people organising and turning up for little protests here and there, etc. And isn't it funny how you see the two sides there represented? You've got more than likely the usual suspects of the EDL, the English Defence Lemons, on one side, and on the other side you have the Anti-Fascist League, who have become, I think, most likely due to infiltration and co-intel, etc. I think that movement, if there was any grassroots genuine originality to it, it has most definitely been subverted and co-opted and set up as a controlled opposition. So you have two controlled oppositions facing off with each other on the streets of your local town and cities. And all the while the media is there, every news cycle, every news break, terror, 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 terror. Are they fanning the flames to initiate that brave new world? Yeah, they want to set the fire so that they can raise the phoenix. And all these lemons go marching along shouting, "England, England, we love the Queen, we love the Queen, bah, bah." Controlled opposition army of useful idiots on both sides. I'm sure there are probably, as is the usual caveat, that just to pacify the more emotive reactors. Yes, of course, there are always some genuine people. They may be few and far between. They may be of good intentions and well-meaning, but they're falling for a setup, and their own participation in it and their acquiescence to its real ideology is pushing the agenda along. It is adding weight to the gravity of that onrushing police state that we're heading into. That fascist regime, call it what it is. There's no good dancing around the political correctness. We're far beyond the political correctness anymore. In what I never say that I am part of the truth movement or whatever, but the majority of what I do basically means that I am part of the truth movement. So even if I choose to not declare myself part of the truth movement in any way, what I do in general means I am participating in that. And it is, in my opinion, far beyond the point in time to try and subtly coax people towards seeing the realisation of what is going on in this particular country. But it's not just this particular country, as we've often pointed out for people here. You know, this is going on Europe-wide, this is going on globally. This is the shifting of the major powers such that they're starting to move their pawns into place and face off against each other and decide where the major conflict zones will be. Remembering as well that the modern style warfare will be proxy and covert warfare. It will not be massive armies facing off with each other in the desert sand or wherever. It may eventually get to that point, but it will take quite a number of years, I think, before it gets to that point. Primarily at the moment, in the shifting phase, it will all be proxy and covert. And remember, under the banner of covert comes terrorism. Operation Gladio, I also almost said Gladiator then, you could suggest it has those kind of Hellenic roots, but there you go. Yes, before I divert myself, I'll mention, getting ahead of myself, I'd already copy and pasted it and put it in the chat room. This article was on wideshut.co.uk from Keelan Balderson, a very salient and calm and reasoned article if you're interested in trying to get a bit more of a context and depth to your investigations into the Woolwich event. Then I'd highly recommend reading that. It'll give you various pointers and links. One thing I always appreciate about Keelan's articles, he always includes lots of links to help you in your own investigation, your own research, your own realisations. Truth is always more true for you when you discover it for yourself. I shouldn't really say more true, it's just proved true. But yeah, that's a good article. I'm pretty certain he's more than likely keeping up with all the stuff that's going on around this event at the moment, because I would think his article, even though I think it's quite encompassing, it probably would need a bit of an update considering more recent information and things to consider. Not necessarily proven one way or the other yet, but there's certainly things that have to be taken into consideration and checked out, etc. Now, in that respect, I'll mention a few other things. I haven't got any links in particular because, as I say, there is such a media circus, and in this respect I'm pointing at the alternative and independent media in terms of the circus. The mainstream media is doing exactly what we would expect from this kind of event. They are pushing the currently required propaganda to fit the current agenda direction. They want a crackdown on your freedoms. They want to control the internet more. They want to have more police powers. They want to have more legislation. They want to have more government powers. They want to have more bureaucratic authority over every last second of your existence. So it suits them. They're doing their usual job. There's nothing really that surprises me in what's going on in the mainstream media at the moment. But in the alternative and the independent media, there is a complete circus going on, and this is where I will wholeheartedly throw my hands up and say that yes, I can agree with why so many voices that like to extricate themselves from the truth movement point at this kind of thing and say therein is the problem. So many people are wrapped up in arguing over whether it was fake or wasn't fake, whether there was blood or wasn't blood, whether they were actors, whether it was a whole set, a film set up with everybody in it being actors, etc, etc, and on and on it goes. And for me, this is exactly the same kind of thing that I experienced with the 9/11 event. And I spent probably at least a couple of years investigating that event, during which I got dragged backwards and forwards by all the various sides saying, no, this version was true, no, this version was true, no, this is what happened, no, this is what happened. Whereas in the long run, all that really mattered is look what has happened in the world after the event. Look at the agendas it has enabled and furthered. Cui bono, who has benefited, where is the money going? How they actually did it, the finer details of how it occurred, become inconsequential when there is almost no chance of any genuine kind of justice in the sense of a judicial system having some kind of genuine fair hearing over the information, the evidence, the events itself. It's not going to happen until there's a revolution, basically. And in the same manner, you can say the same about the 7/7 bombings here in the UK, and there have been many other events over the last few years. Certainly within the last couple of years there have been many more such events where the actual details of the events themselves become highly questionable backwards and forwards, and it is very difficult to prove one way or the other with any kind of acceptable solid evidence to a judicial system that you could actually get some kind of result out of. In other words, there just ain't enough weight in the evidence to take it into a court and know that it will get properly heard and fairly judged, and that it'll actually maybe result in some convictions and people being removed out of positions of power and sent to prison. Just ain't going to happen at the moment with the way the situation is. Whoever these people are, this cabal, this bloodline elite, as they think of themselves, the Illuminati, as you know, being conspiracy theorists, we have to do as we're told. We must do what the media tells us, and we must use these phrases just as they teach us to. When I say Illuminati, everybody thinks of Harry Potter wearing his hood and waving his wand, and it's not a wooden stick. Yeah. So, isn't it unusually convenient, and I'll lead this into further exploratory depth of the possible psychological manipulations going on here. As I say, there's lots of argument and polarisation and quagmire effect of people embedding themselves into one camp or the other. It was fake, it wasn't fake. There was blood, there wasn't blood. There wasn't blood, there was blood. It's getting that silly, I can't even keep track of it myself. In the long run, what does it matter of the details of the event, as these alleged perpetrators are already being rapidly fast-tracked through the court system. The main guy, Michael, has already supposedly appeared in court and been convicted, even though he was also supposedly shot. It's amazing how quick the doctors worked out to get him back out again so he could go to court. Lots of questions in that respect. Isn't it convenient at the same time that old Camel-Face, our commander-in-chief, after rushing back to the UK to head a session of Cobra to discuss these new terrible terror activities, terror, he then, seeing as his PR job had been done, he jetted off to Ibiza for a bit of time in the sun, bit of rest and relaxation in the sun for old Camel-Face. He's been working hard. He's been working hard for the country, hasn't he? Yeah. So where does he go for his little break? He goes to Ibiza. Why is the Prime Minister going to Ibiza for a holiday, and we then get subjected to an endless stream of photographs of him and his wife on holiday in Ibiza being pushed through the news stream, the news cycle? What is it they're trying to tell people here? That Camel-Face is just like an average guy. He goes to Ibiza for his holiday. He's got a cheap package tour holiday to Ibiza, hasn't he? Yeah, sure he has. He's just the same as you. He likes to go off to the Mediterranean and lays about in the sun on the sand and look like a red lobster. He's just like you. He's just an average guy. He's not 11th in line to the throne. No. He's not a member of the Bullingdon Boys who used to harass and torment and abuse homeless people and business owners, etc. Oh, no. He's just an average guy, just like you. And he's been working hard for the country, hasn't he? So you should do your bit as well and go and sign up for the armed forces. Join the armed forces, you really should. Just like good old Camel-Face. Look at him, he enjoys all the things you do. A bit of sun, bit of beer, a few lagers in him. Where he's got his girlfriend there with him. He's a goer, and he's just like you. Now, details aside of the various questions to do with whether the London attack was faked or not, what has it achieved? Has it enabled their agenda? Has it helped further their agenda? Has it added weight to the gravity of that never-ending propaganda of terror? I think it bloody well has. Is it so convenient timing that this event happened when it did, and the perpetrators happened to say what they said in front of a camera, and all the pieces just fall into place so lovely. They must have been rubbing their hands with clay, the piggies were slavering. And off to Ibiza he went for a little bit of sun and PR photo ops. If it was a fake, if it was actors, I have yet to hear any, and this is true as well for the various argument that's still ongoing to do with the Boston event as to whether that was actors and hoaxed, etc. It's a question that I think I have asked in one way or another before, but to refine the question just to make it easier for those people that are determined that it is actors, whatever. What tactical and strategic advantage is there for them to use actors and to fake it, to hoax it? Please give me a salient response to explain what are the tactical and strategic advantages to doing such an event in such a methodology, using such a methodology as actors and hoaxing it, etc. Compare that to the efficacy efficacy, if I can say the word properly, in other words, the doing to good effect, get more English proper, compared to the efficacy of just outright killing somebody. Why? How is it advantageous to their agenda, to what they want to do, etc., etc., etc.? I just don't see it. I don't see why they would bother. I don't see how it would be an advantage to them in any way at all if they perform this event utilising actors. What benefit is there to hoaxing it? Doing it either way, hoax it or do it real, you still end up with the same result of what you want in terms of the propaganda and the agenda, etc., etc. So why take the extra risks, all that kind of stuff to do with it being faked? Why? They don't need to. Again, as I say, in that respect, there are questions still, certainly that I've been keeping an eye on, in terms of some of the evidence to do with the London event in particular, as I've pointed out, giving you a couple of links as well to do with the Boston event, because as I say, that is still ongoing and unravelling. I still think the Boston event was more than likely a MyHop, possibly a lie-hop if the older brother had in some manner gone rogue or something like that, but I think it's more than likely a MyHop. And in the same manner, I think that's true of this event in London. It's highly likely, it's looking more likely as we go along that it is a MyHop. But there are still some questions, there are some photographs that are highly suspect when compared to the footage that was shown on the general broadcast mainstream media news, for example. They've been very selective. As I say, they're doing their job of what they're supposed to do. They've been quite selective with the footage that they keep repeating ad nauseum because they're trying to drive a point home. It wasn't, it was Goebbels, wasn't it? I think you'd say a lie and keep repeating it to eventually they will believe it. I'm not sure if that was Goebbels or was it Hitler himself. I ended up having to mention Hitler. Somebody always mentions Hitler. Yes. MyHop. I'm definitely punting towards. I would say that is the most likely outcome. Occam's razor leads me to MyHop. Whether it was faked or partly faked in some manner becomes inconsequential to me because, as I say, the bigger, wider picture, the context, the depth of the connections and weight that is added to the various agendas means, yeah, MyHop. To link that back into why I played that particular original track on the intro of The Brave New World and why I picked at it the way I did and mashed it up the way I did, to add a little bit more of an esoteric overtone to this, because remember as well, please, whether you believe it or not, some of, if not all, some of the people who are right up there at the top of this pyramid have very definite beliefs, and whether there's any justification to those beliefs is a very, very long debate, but the point is they believe these things and they adhere to certain systems, methodologies and dogmas, etc., etc., that means certain things occur for certain reasons that may not on the surface be initially apparent to the uninitiated. And I'm not trying to suggest in any way that I am an initiate or I am a guru or I am a mason introducing you in some. I'm not. You go and look into all this stuff for yourself. The information is around. You can learn about this stuff for yourself without ever having to get yourself involved with any of those insidious secret societies. Woolwich, just the name itself should for those of you that have the interest in the use of language and the manipulation of language and the occultic overtones of language and symbology, etc., because remember, symbols are contained within words. When you say a word to somebody, for a lot of the words we use, the way the mind works is it conjures an image. You associate imagery to help you remember what words mean what. So when I say apple to you, you have an image in your head of an apple. You don't just see black and white words like on a page. The way the human mind works is primarily in imagery. Woolwich. Can we say sheeple? I can. Sheeple. Being bewitched by the woolly witch. What is it? What is part of the backbone of this new structure that they're trying to impress upon the global society? It is one that is reliant on banks, prisons and schools. Poverty, hatred and lies. Banks, poverty. Prisons, hatred. Schools, lies. Yeah, as I say, that's why I picked that track deliberately, because of those lyrics in it. Problem, reaction, solution taking place in Woolwich. Are they trying to mess with the minds of the sheep or of the herd? Are they trying to cast a spell over them to draw them down into a lower vibrational, blood magic, occultic mind manipulation abuse? To further terrify the victims of that abuse mentality. Terror, 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 terror. It has been non-stop on the news here, on the print media as well. It's been non-stop here in the UK since the event took place. In your face, terror, 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 terror. Look at the blood on his hand. Look at the blood, terror, terror, terror. And all at the same convenient timing with the Bilderberg event coming up. And as I said earlier, their attitude of now allowing themselves to be publicly seen, all of this going on at the moment stinks to the most extreme excrement. Banks, prisons and schools. Problem, reaction, solution. Banks, prisons and schools. Problem, reaction, solution. Poverty, hatred and lies. The propaganda keeps pushing this to add a yet further layer to these intertwined connections of ensorcelled symbology, in other words, words. Plausible deniability, plus confirmation bias, plus moral panic, equals problem, reaction, solution. They initiated an event for which they would have plausible deniability. They knew that having used such force multipliers as Sandy Hook and other carefully and insidiously placed propaganda memes, such as the article from the BH featured in the Telegraph, they knew that there would be a large demographic of the population that on one side of the fence or the other would suffer from a confirmation bias of this fitting their desired reality. Note that I say their desired reality, not what real reality is going on around them, but what they want it to be. And I use an example of this, the English defence lemons. I want Britain to be about Britain with their Muslimic ray guns, the confirmation bias. And on the opposite side you have the more crazed amongst the conspiracy theorists. Let's put it that way to be nice about it. Yes, it is unfortunately true that there are some genuinely unhinged people, and for them events such as this they become obsessed with, and their ideas of explaining it or their tunnel reality of evidence to confirm it, it becomes exceedingly biased and unbalanced. So the generalised, ubiquitous they, knew there would be a confirmation bias which would tip the moral panic in their favour. The moral panic, the outrage, again, the English defence lemons on the street, and because they're out on the street, the anti-fascists come out on the street to face up against them, and all the while everybody's feeling the same. Oh, this is terrible, this is horrible, this is, we can't have this happening on our streets. Push them into the sea, push them into the sea, rivers of blood. The fact that the clash of civilizations propaganda meme was brought out and waved around, I was actually surprised that nobody started shouting about Enoch's Rivers of Blood speech as well. Moral panic, problem, reaction, solution, ka-ching! Oh, we now need to curtail your internet freedoms because you're all self-radicalising yourself. You know how to use a mouse, therefore you're a terrorist. Excuse me? Yes. Welcome to Stasi Britain. I'm going to give you another link, and then I'm going to play a bit of classic music, some classic rock, which, again, I think the lyrics just say it all. And I haven't messed with this one, I promise. I've left this one pure as it was originally, classic. But yes, this other link I've just given you, this was on the ZenGardener.com website. Great website for an interesting community as well. If you're interested in thinking, maybe extend your reach much further outside of the box than your general conspiracy type stuff will reach to. Just how far does the rabbit hole go? It's infinite, I promise you. But this is I felt just a nice little article. Zen has a good way of wording things. It does strike me sometimes that it feels as if he's saying exactly the same as me, just using different words. But I'm trying to stay optimistic on that there is just a wave occurring, and has been occurring for a while now, that is reaching many people. So there are a lot more people that are all on a cheesy cliche similar wavelength. And the various threads that have for many years, certainly for myself, for many years have tormented the average inquirer, the seeker, the questioner, whether it be you're looking at conspiracy info, whether it be you're looking at esoteric, spiritual stuff, whatever, the inquirer, the fact that you're looking. There have been certain conspiracy threads that for decades have tormented us in their elusiveness. The thrashing of the tentacles made them difficult to grasp hold of in a metaphorical mental sense. And for the last few years they've become more and more apparent. They have meshed together and become so big and fat that they can no longer be ignored. The machine's own size and weight as its gravity increases is making it more and more visible to more and more people. The beast is revealing itself in its death throes. But yes, as I wax lyrical, sorry, it's quite an interesting little article that sort of points that kind of stuff out. We have a serious disconnect going on here. And if you can take a step back and look at some of these situations that occur in the world around you with a little bit of objectivity without losing your humanity, and a little bit of rationality without losing your emotive response, again in the same way your humanity, because we are both, we're not one or the other, we're not Vulcans and we're not crazy Klingons. We have both. So if you can step back and take a look at some of these events, you can see how I can see how the majority of the public are being disconnected. They're being shunted into a spiritual prison, and that spiritual prison will be online. It will be virtual. Yes, that's a topic for another longer conversation. Yes, anyway, I said I would play some more tunes. Yeah, it's, like I said, quite a nice little article. I will play this other classic rock for you. I'll come back for a last little bit before we wind up for this show. Yeah, I will be back in. Oh, it's a bit longish, 8.5 minutes. I'm sure you'll cope when you hear it. I'll be back soon. Welcome back. Yes, last bit from me, Virtual Shamanizing May, the hairy cookie monster. Yes, I'm feeling exceptionally hairy for some reason. Classic track from The Who, Won't Get Fooled Again. As I say, I think the lyrics say, oh really? Yeah, are we just seeing the same old process, the same old recycling process going on? We shall see. Hopefully there's enough of us singing loud enough that we might actually redirect it, nudge it a little bit, just like their nudge committee, yeah, that secret committee that helps persuade public opinion. Oh, we're all conspiracy theorists. Oh, sorry, you don't want to look at real documented evidence because you just want to point and laugh. Okay then. Yes, anyway, classic track. And I forgot to mention, sorry Keelan, if you're listening, on Keelan's website, wideshut.co.uk, the title of the article is Woolwich Attack, Hysteria, Exploitation and Blowback. If you go through his website homepage, you'll find it, I think, at the top of the list of his articles anyway. So, but just to make sure I hadn't forgot, I always like to say what the links are, just in case people can't see the chat room or whatever. And also, so that it's recorded for all time into the digital cloud. Oh, yes. If we're going to build this virtual Babylon, then I'm making sure that I lay a few, what shall we call them, jack-in-the-box bricks, so that just when it's nearly complete, it'll all hopefully come tumbling down. Yes, welcome to Stasi Britain. Just to wind up, I'm gonna give you a couple more links in a sec, because even though I've never actually been directly accused of this, I do take note of the fact, because I listen to so much stuff, you know, the general chatter that I listen to, and one of the all-time classic argument points is, you never offer any solutions. You never offer any solutions. And as I try to point out to people, when you start getting into all this kind of information, that's not strictly true. There are those people who will try and convince you of that, but they're the people that are still running around like a chicken with its head cut off, because they're only just starting to breach through their anger and denial phase. So they're still in shock, basically, at all the stuff they're finding out. So they're in fight or flight panic mode. Like somebody on a sinking ship, they're the ones that are running up and down right next to the lifeboats without realising that they're right next to the lifeboats. There are plenty of lifeboats, there are lots of people out there that are working on solutions or just discussing ideas for solutions and all this kind of stuff you can get involved in. It's not just pure technology, empirical technology, it's also a lot of spiritual, and even if you're atheistic, it's psychosocial, human interaction, discussing how we can be, hopefully, getting towards some kind of better system of society than what we've got now. And I'm not trying to be some kind of moral headquarters, moral HQ for whoever. That's up to you. I will often refer to what I feel are some of the truisms, some of the absolutes about reality, the way I see it anyway, just to add that relative caveat to it. But there are some absolute truisms. That's what I try to remind people of, or nudge them towards, or point at, or point out for them. Don't fall overboard because you think there's no decking underneath you. There is decking. You just have to look and realise it's there. So before I ramble off in another direction, along those lines, I'll give you a couple of links. This is one that I've mentioned a few times over the years. and I will always keep coming back to it. I know people, personally know people that have had good experiences with all this stuff and would recommend it to others. I'm hopefully going to be going off and doing some woofing at some point, hopefully in the nearest future, hopefully. Yes, woof. The Worldwide Organisation of Organic Farms, I believe it stands for, an acronym. That's WWOOF. So 2 W's, 2 O's and an F. Woof. You'll find them at woofinternational.org. It's a link I'll put in the chat room. There are a few different websites, there's one for each country as well, so that it's easier for locals to find places that are local for them. And the international one is for those of you that are interested and willing to travel abroad to do such things. So there's, connecting the global network of all these little groups working together. And this is an organisation that basically just connects people to others who own or run primarily organic farms. I think they do cover other or mixed produce farms, things like that. But they put you in contact with people who are looking for help, whether that just be pure physical labouring, like farm labouring, or whether that be technical knowledge and skills, etc. They're looking for people to come and get involved in their little farms and communities and help them run the situation. And at the same time, the feedback loop is you get at the minimum you get food and accommodation. Some places, some of the sites do offer more than that, but you have to look into it for yourself, because there are a lot of different places on there, so I can't exactly point at different ones for you and say this one or that one. There are thousands, but there you go. You want to get involved in that kind of stuff, you want to learn some of the skills and the way it all works. Basically, you plant the seed, nature grows the seed, you eat the seed, and round that little cycle goes. When it's working properly, when it's not interfered with by things like Monsanto, etc., when it doesn't have the commodity meme attached to it. Anyway, yes. So there you go. There's one life raft of people, and one organisation in particular, but there's lots of others that link into it, that are actively working on ideas, solutions, and life rafts to enable the change of this system without us all collapsing out of it into some kind of fascistic death camp. Yes, anyway. And one other link on a similar sort of vein, just to carry on into that, because these are people offering to accommodate you to help them with their land and property. So here's an example of a little growing community of people who have basically done that kind of thing for themselves, and this is their little blog called beingsomewhere.net. It's a little blog about their ongoing endeavour and experiences and how they've done it. They talk about how they organise the structures themselves, the accommodation, how they organise their land, growing, etc. Talking about permaculture. They're now starting to offer little educational courses if you want to learn about building earthship or ambient style structures that don't have a very, very low impact on their surroundings, and are also, most of the time with these structures, they're quite self-sufficient, they're self-cycling. So yeah, just two little bits, the one being just an example of how these kind of things can be done. This change in system does not mean that we either have to accept this kind of fascistic Borg mechanised transhumanist monster, or we all have to go back and live in caves. No, they're just two massive polarisations, and the cabal, the evil ones, the Illuminati, they're the ones that are trying to drag us towards that big nasty mechanised control system, because they know that if the tide turns against them, history will judge them severely, and the public mob will not be empathic or compassionate to them. They will tear them to pieces. I'm not trying to suggest that, or condone, or I don't want that kind of stuff to happen. I will not be involved in it. But I'm one of those people that hopefully can see this kind of effect, and he's trying to point it out, and he's trying to wave a warning flag before it gets to that stage. Because when and if the tide turns in that manner, if you have all those enraged people who are currently coming out onto the streets, if they decide that they've finally had enough of you faffing about, that they decide to take matters into their own hands, it will be a very unpleasant occurrence and event. Dark times indeed, potentially. So, yeah, don't believe the hype. Keep investigating the situation as it's ongoing in reference to the London attacks in Woolwich, but don't believe the hype, and don't get dragged into the opposing controlled opposition freak show arguments. Look at the evidence, follow the paper trail. Cui bono? Who benefits the most out of this? What does it enable and profit? And then we deal with the fallout from that. There's no point getting entrenched into arguments over intricate details. The devil's in the detail, and he will drag you down. Yes, anyway, folks, I'm not going to do a show next week. I'm going to try to get to the Bilderberg event. Like I said earlier, despite my apprehensions and all the various warning signs and aromas, if you want to go and you can go, please do. But go in peaceful protest, go to raise awareness and to network with others and to point out the crimes of these people. Don't go expecting that by waving your sign they will suddenly become saints and change everything that they're doing. No, we need to bring public attention to this, and that's what's happening. Just be careful how you allow yourself to be presented. Be careful about talking to mainstream media. They will crucify anyone on the editing room floor, as they say. So be very careful if you choose to interact with the mainstream media that will be there. Even though I know it can be very difficult to do, very trying to do, but try to interact with the authorities in a courteous manner if you can. I'm not trying to placate the man or the Babylon or the machine or anything like that, but it is definitely to all our benefits if this whole thing goes off without any major trouble. If you see people who you think are trying to provocateur something, back away from them. Don't get involved. Point them out to everybody else around you. If you have a video camera, go with a video camera if you have one, or if you just have a phone, video them, record it. Make sure that their aggression gets diluted and played down, and if they are provocateured, everybody gets pointed out, and you let the rest of the people there know about it. If you want some examples of how they will manipulate situations like that, go and watch Into the Fire from Press for Truth. The Canadian guys, Dan Dix, hopefully they'll be there at the Bilderberg event. There'll be various names there, so that's the main thing to me. Hopefully it will be a good occasion to be creating links, communification with lots of these people that are all surrounding this information, this environment, these agendas that are occurring. Yes, anyway. So I won't do a show next week. If I can't end up making it down there myself, but I know other people are going, if that means we can sort out something like set up a live show or a relay or something, then yeah, we'll try and sort something out, yeah, but there will be people there will be people covering it, so hopefully I might see you there. And yes, I will leave it at that and wind it up, because I'm going to play a couple of tracks for you which should just nicely take it to the hour. Thank you for listening, and be careful out there if you go. Like I said, just be aware and get involved with people, get talking, get conversing. Communication is the key, hopefully. Yeah, let's keep promoting that. Take care, folks, and like I always say, a bit of a cliche now, keep evolving. I'm going to play this one track for you, which again, a little bit sort of to emphasise the multicultural type thing, and again a little nod to some of the situation as it's ongoing in the UK at the moment, the political type stuff, but you know, whatever. Yes, anyway, take care, folks. I'll rant at you again soon, in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully at least.